by doing so, be able to give you a more updated, current, and an appropriate view of what creating an enterprise of this nature actually looks like, in order to move forward in that direction, should council want to do that. So at this point, we're asking for the opportunity to move forward in the direction of putting that study together, updating our information, without being coy with respect to the notion that a stormwater enterprise not only is something that staff would recommend council give serious consideration to, but is also consistent with the goals that council has established, at least to date, as it relates to giving this very serious thought, potentially creating that enterprise. So with that, if I could have Tom and Krista come forward to answer more questions or provide a little more detail in this regard, I would certainly appreciate it.
Tom. So let's first start. If you have any context you want to add to that, Tom?
Mayor, members of the council, just a very brief overview. We have a lot of stormwater infrastructure, 5,000 feet of pipe, where we have 7,000 inlets, 2,500 manholes. And unlike water and sewer, we don't have an enterprise to help maintain these. On the water and sewer side, we charge for those services, and that gives us a funding source to help improve and maintain and keep those viable. And in 2013, we completed a stormwater management master plan that identified $46 million in needs to our stormwater enterprises. And those were aging infrastructure, undersized infrastructure, and all kinds of other components that were needed to convey stormwater. And as we know, it's been a couple years ago, we had that significant flood event here. And those are the times that this really comes to light, the undersizing and the concerns of that. The other thing that's interesting about a stormwater enterprise is the fact that it gives us an opportunity to help fund streets as well, because curb and gutter are a critical part of stormwater conveyance. And curb and gutter, to me, are one of the reasons that our roads deteriorate. If we don't have proper curb and gutter, water gets underneath our roadways, causes the roadway infrastructure to deteriorate. Beyond that, even a lot of our park systems are part of our stormwater infrastructure, and they provide some level of treatment for that stormwater when it conveys through the parks. And so this also gives us some additional funding that helps in supporting those parks that are part of the stormwater treatment. So it really gives us a breadth of opportunities and a funding source and enterprise that will help us maintain this critical infrastructure. And all the stormwater here, again, ultimately ends up in the North Platte River. So making sure that it's properly conveyed, even though we aren't required to treat it, but properly conveyed and taken care of, we're also protecting, to me, what is our most valuable natural resource, which is the North Platte River. Just as a little bit of context, in 2016, when the previous stormwater master plan was prepared, we had looked at impervious areas. I'd worked on that project with my previous employer, and the impervious area we looked at, it looked like the bill for an average home was going to be about $5 per month for a stormwater utility, and that was generating over $2 million in funding to help our infrastructure. So it's a pretty modest fee, if you will, for a stormwater management fee that could then result in a lot of funding to support this infrastructure. The proposal to how you fund this, really great part of GIS and the upgraded mapping, is we look at impervious area, our hard surfaces. So when you think about the lot that your house is on, you have the roof. That's impervious surface. You have sidewalks, the driveway, any of those areas that are impervious. And using GIS, we can just automatically calculate. This is what Cheyenne does. They set up a rate of 0.01 cents per square foot. And so everybody gets billed from their house based upon their impact. So you take something like the mall, Kelly Walsh High School, areas that have a lot of impervious surface, they get billed a lot more based upon how much flow their site causes to flow onto our street, and then we have to handle. So it becomes a very fair way of billing and allocating those costs. So our proposal today is to do execute a contract with CEPI, because they did the original study in 2016, to update the data, to update what are our needs, what are current cost estimates, what are some options for this, and then to come back to council when that study is done and say, here's your options. And again, we see it as a myriad of options where we say, hey, the lower impact cost, but it would take this long to make our improvements, or higher cost to begin with, and we can complete those improvements in a quicker manner, and then let the council have some input on what, if any, that fee should be. So we're requesting in the neighborhood of $35,000 to $40,000. We haven't nailed down the scope, so we don't have an exact fee, and that money would come from direct distribution. I talked to Jill a little bit about that. I think there's also an opportunity to possibly have solid waste that takes care of a lot of our street sweeping and other components. They could potentially help offset that cost, but right now as proposed, it's direct distribution. To update the study, as part of that, city GIS department is going to do a lot of help with that impervious area, and the CEPI study will be, hey, how do we update this stuff to figure out, what different funding levels look like to complete the stormwater infrastructure that is aging and deteriorating as we speak. With that, I apologize, I said it would be brief. I wasn't very brief, but
That was fantastic.
if there's any questions, I'd be glad to try and address those questions. And Mary, I greatly appreciate that.
Thank you. Absolutely.
And Krista's here. Krista's really been the one that's carried water on all this, prepared the memo, been working with CEPI on a scope and fee for this. And I'm just being the not so pretty face that's presenting it to you guys today.
Any questions for Tom or Krista on this recommendation? Yeah, Kyle.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm bummed Councillor Sweeney isn't here because I know this is something he's talked about multiple times. So would have loved his perspective on this. But my question, Tom and Krista, thank you for all your work on it, is this study, for how long do you expect the results to be relevant for? I mean, obviously 2016, COVID and everything, a lot's changed in the past 10 years. How long, barring any worldwide pandemics and other kind of life-altering, unpredictable events, how long do you expect that data to be relevant for? I guess I'll cap my question there.
Mayor, Councillor, I think if we're doing a good job in master planning, the concepts of what those components that are needed should be relevant for 10, 20, 30 years. I can think back to working on, I think, 3 different water master plans for the city of Casper. And in preparing those, I look back to the old Black and Veatch 76 study, a 1983 study. And again, there were still things that were relevant from theirs. The costs aren't always relevant. I can tell you the last big water master plan I worked for the city, there's probably $15 million worth of work that was completed after that. So we had to update the costs to keep current with the costs, but the scope and nature of the project was very, very relevant. Now that bars one thing, and that is development. Should we see a 200 lot development that occurs in one location, then I think, that could put the thumb on the scale of what the priority of those needs. The other one is Krista and her crews do an amazing job of inspecting, cleaning, televisioning these storm sewers. And so as different items arise, just like in water, hey, we had 3 leaks on Missouri Street. Well, that went from, a secondary priority to a primary priority because we had leaks. Same way if we have a stormwater failure, we have a problem that occurs. So, but I think the update of, and again, this is more of the utility update, it's not the master plan update. I think we have a really good grasp on what we need to build. We just frankly don't have a funding source, which unfortunately is often our problem. Knowing what we need, but not having a spigot of dollars to flow into the projects.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Tom. I appreciate that context. To me, it makes a lot of sense to treat stormwater utilities akin to water, sewer, solid waste, and our other utilities. Like you said, $46 million backlog. This is an elephant we're going to have to start eating at some point. I'm glad to see in the memo that we wouldn't, at least staff's consideration is not to implement until at least fiscal year 27. That's certainly, well, I guess that would be next year then. So I guess I would potentially disagree with the timeline. The earliest I would want to consider it is fiscal year 28. Just because, we have the 6 cent in place, it's been in place for a couple months, the 1 cent's up for renewal next year. I think we're expending political capital even talking about this. It's a necessary conversation, but I'm just worried about the timing. From what I hear from folks there, just totally tapped out. The 6 cent was really just kind of stretching it. Obviously only half those projects got approval, and they were more kind of core infrastructure. And so I'm worried about putting this in front of folks who are implementing it until things like drastically improve from just kind of a national economic health factor. But yeah, data is always good, and if it's going to be relevant for the next couple decades, I think we need it because it's a conversation we have to have. But I personally do not think we should be considering this at least until after the 1 cent's renewed in 26, which would be so technically year 2027, but fiscal year 28. But that's my perspective.
Yep, Jenna.
So I have a question. So back to the, you gave a price of like $5, right, about the stormwater. Would that be quarterly billing or are you talking monthly having that on there? So annually for a homeowner, it would cost, if it's $5 a month, like $60 a year? Is that what we're talking, or are you gonna build it in segments like quarterly?
Mayor,
Have
Councilor,
you-
the intent as written in the 2016 study was that this would be another line item on your monthly bill. So on your monthly bill, you have sanitation, you have water, you have sewer, and then you'd have stormwater. So those numbers that I gave you, $5 for a medium-sized household, equated to a little over $2 million, was based upon a monthly billing. So you're exactly right, your math, $60 per month for an average size
Per year.
residential.
$60 a year.
Sorry, $60.
Well, I think that's I mean, given the economy and everything else, yes, but we have to also do business and maintain things as well. So I don't think that that's a huge amount of money annually per host owner, and especially if it's based off of, like you're saying, the impervious, how much impervious they have, right? Areas, the concrete, the areas that don't absorb the water. Okay.
Yep, Amber.
So it might vary from $5.
Sorry, Jenna.
Sorry, so it might vary. So maybe some people that don't have as much concrete, it might be $3 a month, or is it gonna be like a flat 5?
And Mayor, Councilor, I'd invite you to not necessarily hang your hat on a certain dollar amount per month.
Okay.
I think we can look at that once the study is complete, when we
Okay.
talk about what are people willing to
Mhm.
bear, and I think even more important than that, what are the real needs of our infrastructure and how quickly do we need to address those needs? Because that dollar amount could be low or it could be high, but again, we could cross that bridge once we've done the analysis to figure out how much revenue we can generate from this.
Gotcha.
And that'd be
It's
another
not
item.
unheard of. A lot of cities do it, so.
Absolutely. In the state of Wyoming, Cheyenne's moving forward now, and
Cody, Evanston, and Rock Springs too.
It's not uncommon. And then plus it helps for the roadways, like you were saying, to keep them curbing the water going where it should. All right, next. Sorry.
Amber, I'll get you caught.
Yeah, I just think we have to start moving in this direction. So if this is the first step, I say, let's take it. We can keep, timing and other things in mind as we start to push forward, but getting this first step in place, I think like we know this is where we're gonna be going eventually, so let's go.
Yeah,
Study, that's
definitely.
all, I mean, that's all
That's
we
all
gotta
we're
approve
doing
right now.
Thank you, Mayor. So in the memo, it says that a potential future stormwater utility fee could potentially generate revenues to handle curb and gutter replacement. I'm curious, would that also, my guess is we've not seen our last LAD. And so if we had a stormwater utility fee in place, would this reduce the onus on the property owners to replace their curb and gutters as part of future LADs, or not necessarily?
Mayor, councilors, maybe. It really depends. The certain curb and gutter is really, really critical to stormwater flows. If you're at the top of a hill or a street that doesn't flow very far, in general, the property owner is responsible for their sidewalk. And so again, if we were doing an LAD, we could assess if this is, hey, this is critical infrastructure for stormwater. We could say we'll pay for the curb and gutter as part of the LAD, and then the property owner will pay for the flat sidewalk portion. Even though it's monolithically poured, it's fairly easy to separate out those costs. But again, it really depends on how the LAD is established and move forward.
Thank you. I think you actually, in our previous LADs, we've always covered curb and gutter, right? It's always just been the property owner. The sidewalk portion is what, and then mains to their house or lines to their house or whatever. Okay, so thanks for clarifying that for me. I was a bit wrapped around the axle on that.
Jenna, go ahead.
So I'm just finding an article from Oil City News that we attempted this in 2022. apparently for a stormwater enterprise fund. It sounds like the same thing that we're doing. This says Casper looking at launching stormwater enterprise instead of
When we
relying
started
on the
talking
website.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Huh?
that's when we started talking about it.
Yeah.
None of it
Yeah.
we made any official.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing was, but
Mayor, Councilor, it's been in 2016, again, I helped draft
Yeah.
this and spoke in front as a consultant in front of the council at that point. And at that point, it was much more challenging because we had to go through a formal vote to establish this, and there was some concern about them. Again, I'm very grateful to our Councilor Sweeney, because as our representative, he carried the water on this. He's the guy that really led the charge to change the statutes that allow us to have this stormwater enterprise exist. So
Yeah.
again, he's been an advocate for this because of that 2016 study. And I know just living in the city of Casper, this has been brought up over and over again. It wasn't a year and a half, not quite a year and a half ago, we had a discussion at the council about the option of a stormwater enterprise. So again, it's continues to be a
Topic that
problem,
keeps
and it's
coming up.
fascinating. You know, we know it just happened in Texas. Every time we get a major storm event, these issues always, pardon, they rise to the surface. And it's like, wow, when are we going to start maintaining our stormwater infrastructure?
Yep.
Not that that would have helped in Texas, but it are those stormwater events that hit municipal areas that are always driving the need for stormwater infrastructure.
I agree with Amber. We need to move forward on this.
So it sounds like we are giving the thumbs up or thumbs down to move forward with this study. Everybody okay with that? Okay, we'll cross the bridge later on.
There's a lot of water references.
Yeah.
and
I know.
You like that?
and A few too many for my
A lot of
taste,
water, no
but
bridge.
carry the water, we got the bridge, we got it rising.
And I
to
didn't
the
even do it on
surface.
purpose. All right, gender review. Carter, do you have anything for us?
Mr. Mayor, councilors, nothing too critical as it relates to the next several months that I want to bring to your attention right now. But certainly this is the opportunity to help direct the development of these these agendas and the topics that come forward. So if you have that direction tonight, we'd be glad to take it.
Yeah, go ahead, Carl.
Sorry, man, I feel like I'm talking way more than usual.
You really are.
I'm a little self-conscious about it, but just filled with questions. I'm covering for Pat while he's out.
Yeah.
I'm doing double duty.
Gotta do it.
Right? My question is actually about a previous agenda item, the Trevette Robertson bid that's going to be on our agenda next week. I guess I'm still a little confused. The acceptance of that bid, should we do it at our next regular meeting? Does that mandate us to change the zoning to align with the requirements of the bid? What does that, I guess, what does that look like? Does it have to go through a rezoning process or again, or essentially, I'm getting some shaking heads.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilor, yes, you will go through the very same rezoning process that you always do when it comes to a petitioner wanting to make a change to their property. So, yes.
Go ahead.
Well, that makes me feel a little bit better about our meeting next week, but I guess I'm still a little confused on how that process works. If we accept a bid, but choose in the end not to change the zoning to reflect the requirements of that bid, that seems like some gray area that like, how do you not, I mean, we might not be in that situation, but I'm trying to have a little foresight. How do you handle that?
Go ahead, Eric. Yeah.
Mayor, Counselor. So I would agree you would have to go through that rezoning process. I did see that in there as, I guess, a condition of the bid, if you will, but I don't think you can draft a sales contract with an individual and then bind the council to make a future, what in essence is a political or policy legislative decision. And so I think that council still has, you know, they would have to be clear in there that is not, we're not contractually bound to that, and that individual or that entity would have to go through that rezone process, and you would have the same rights and abilities that you always would in those types of proceedings.
Thank you, Mayor. Should we decide not to rezone it to R3, which it sounds like is what would be required for the development, would that purchase agreement evaporate, or like what happened? I'm assuming we don't just take the guy's money and say, shove
Yeah,
off.
nice day. Mayor, Counselor, I think it needs to be made clear to the purchaser that is a potential that could happen. And so once the deal is done and the deed is transferred, so to speak, then there's really not any unwinding it, right? So he either can feel comfortable and move forward with the deal on those terms, knowing that there's that potential eventuality or not. I think that would be the risk that he would have.
He has to sell it if he doesn't want it.
So he could potentially, we could accept the bid for $500,000 and choose not to zone it, and he's left holding the bag kind of. All right.
Caveat emptor, I guess. I would say.
What is it?
Caveat emptor, buyer beware, yeah.
Oh,
Interesting.
thanks for the Latin.
Appreciate the clarification. That's all.
Thank you. Anything else? Carter, anything else on gender?
No,
related?
sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, council around the table. Let's go ahead and start with Amber, if you're okay.
Got nothing.
Okay. Matt? Mr. Bond?
Not much. Did you get a chance did you to that WCDA?
Yeah. Yes,
I didn't, I wasn't able to.
we reported it and they're sending it out, so
Oh,
you
okay.
should be able to get it. But yeah, we did go.
But no, I'm just wanted to extend my sympathy to the Barb McGuire's family, Fred and their daughters. Barb was an amazing teacher, taught in Casper for many, many years, and just an incredible loss to the community as well. So, and then other than that, not much going on. I'm planning to go to the economic update tomorrow and the Radiant Town Hall. I think there's another one next Monday. I haven't had a chance to attend one of those, so. I'm gonna go. That's all.
Thanks. Jenna?
I don't really have much, just that it's Central Wyoming Fair and Rodeo, so go support the 4-H kids and get out there, and happy parade day. It was fun seeing everybody outside. There was a lot of people in the parade. That's it.
Randy?
I don't have anything. Kyle, you're gonna pick up that slot again.
Pick up slack here,
I
guy.
got something
Oh,
though.
dear.
Wow. We might get out ahead of schedule.
Maybe. I've been trying. I've been trying to push it, but
Carrying this meeting.
Trying to go to the rodeo.
the only thing I want to mention is Zulima and Nick Gibbs and Randy Norvell from Parks all presented to my Rotary Club yesterday about the partnership between Rotary and the city of Casper, specifically in regards to, I think I brought it up already this year, but Duck Derby proceeds are going to go towards Crossroads Adventure Park. It's a park originally built by Rotary back in 2004. And so it was really good presentation by our city staff, giving history about that project and kind of talking about what it looks like to have more increased collaboration and partnership with Rotary Club and other service clubs going into the future, making sure that, we're identifying community needs and then making sure we match up with the right partners to help us achieve that, especially in light of decreased property tax revenues and other things that are making it harder to maintain specifically our park system. So just wanted to give a shout out to Zulima, Nick and Randy for that. That's all I got.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
I just want to give a shout out to the fire department. They allowed Carter and I to ride in the truck and squirt water at everybody and get squirted ourselves. And it was fun being in the parade. We had a great parade. There was a lot of participation in the parade this year, so real good.
I don't have anything, but I just would tag on to that to say it was wonderful to be out there, seeing the city, amongst all the citizens just out and about. I had the opportunity to ride with Lieutenant Jones at the police department. I will point out very quickly, Carter was initially supposed to ride with us, which he did, but he was put in the back, and apparently it's very tiny. There's no windows that open, and he had the candy. I think at one point he went in and out of consciousness from the heat. Just want to let you know. And if you're interested in seeing that, go to my personal TikTok page. I made a really good TikTok, and you can see Carter back there begging for help.
Begging for water.
I was very desperate.
So he chose to ride on the fire truck. And that's all I got. All righty. We do have a executive session tonight. I now call the July 8th, 2025 special council meeting to order. Please excuse the absence of Councilor Sweeney. Thank you.
So moved.
Moved by Pollock, seconded by Haskins. Any abstentions or nay votes? All voting aye, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. A notice of an executive session to take place at this date and during this meeting was given. We have matters to discuss regarding personnel. Therefore, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn into an executive session, and at the conclusion of that executive session to reconvene the special meeting solely for the purposes of adjournment and this special meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Bond, seconded by the vice mayor. There are a majority of members present, and a motion to adjourn into an executive session has been moved and seconded. This motion requires a 2/3 majority council present. Any abstentions or nay votes? All voting aye, say aye.
Aye.
Too bad. Motion passes. A greater than 2/3 majority of the